Mr. President, thank you for convening this debate. The international community has adopted a vast array of laws and norms to prevent genocide and other war crimes and crimes against humanity. The international legislation comprises the 4 Geneva Conventions and the Genocide Convention. Their observance and implementation is obligatory on all member parties. The concept of the responsibility to protect was advanced by some states and non-governmental organizations during the preparations for the 2005 UN summit. It was a controversial concept from the outset. In the context of the foreign intervention in Iraq, it generated concerns that the concept was designed to open the possibility of intervention in the internal affairs of states. The 2005 outcome document, in paragraphs 138 and 139, consciously restricted the scope of the R2P concept to genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity. Thus, broadly, the R2P concept merely encapsulated existing international humanitarian law. The primary responsibility for the protection rests with the state itself. Only if the national authorities are unable or unwilling to do so, that the international community can take collective action through the Security Council on a case-by-case basis. This authority exists already under the Genocide Convention. The value addition was its extension to war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity, as defined in the Geneva Conventions and accompanying international humanitarian laws. Unfortunately, from the outset, some quarters sought the application of R2P beyond the parameters set out in the outcome document. Secondly, it was sought to be applied in situations where there was no compelling evidence that state authorities were unable or unwilling to act. Some epic interventions, for example in Syria and Libya, were partially justified at the time by the R2P concept, mostly with disastrous consequences. And in other instances, intervention was unilateral, without the explicit and required endorsement of the Security Council. Mr. President, what is most tragic is that while used to justify certain interventions, the R2P concept has failed dramatically to prevent and punish genocide and other crimes when these have actually happened. This is most visible in the failure of the international community to respond to the ongoing genocide in Gaza and other parts of the occupied Palestinian territories. Over 8 months, Israel's military onslaught has killed almost 40,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children. 86,000 have been injured. Humanitarian supplies have been obstructed, hundreds of humanitarian workers killed, famine and pestilence stalk Gaza. Indeed, there could be no better illustration of a situation where the international community has the right and indeed the urgent obligation to intervene to stop this genocide and accompanying war crimes. But where are the original, eloquent proponents of R2P? Some have impeded the Security Council from demanding a ceasefire. Some have supplied and continue to supply arms and ammunition to Israel, even after the International Court of Justice has asked Israel and its suppliers to stop this plausible genocide. Even the Resolution 2735 of the Security Council, where Israel is supposed to have accepted a ceasefire plan, remains unimplemented. Israeli military operations continue. The killing goes on. Is this not a situation where the Security Council, acting under the Genocide Convention, reinforced by the R2P doctrine as set out in paragraphs 138 and 139 of the 2005 outcome document, is this not a situation where the Security Council should intervene to offer protection to the victims? The OIC has proposed the creation of a protection force. This must be urgently considered by the Security Council. Mr. President, for the rest, the international community needs to consider how best it can help in preventing other genocides, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, as well as ethnic cleansing. It should take cognizance of situations where entire populations are being brutalized and where genocide is possible. By definition, and by the example of Gaza, it is evident that peoples under foreign occupation are the most at risk. 2 years ago, the organization, which is called Genocide Watch, warned of the danger of genocide in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. An army of 900,000 Indian troops have been deployed to suppress the Kashmiris' quest for freedom and self-determination. Since 1989, over 100,000 Kashmiris have been killed, 20,000 women raped, thousands made to disappear, 13,000 young Kashmiri boys abducted, and many of them tortured. Where all the leaders seeking freedom are incarcerated for years. Occupied Kashmir, where extrajudicial killings, collective punishments, torture, and other crimes are a daily reality. Where laws have been imposed to rob Kashmiris of their properties and to induct Hindu settlers from outside, to change the demography of the Muslim-majority Jammu and Kashmir into a Hindu-majority territory. The R2P movement must act now if genocide and ethnic cleansing is to be prevented in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. President, there is an equally serious danger which has arisen in India from the officially sponsored ideology of Hindutva, an ideology which encourages the establishment of a Hindu-only Bharat. Muslims face systematic, officially sanctioned discrimination, violence, and oppression. The law enforcement and judicial machinery is complicit in this oppression. Lynching of Muslims by cow vigilantes and RSS thugs goes unpunished. Calls for genocide against Muslims by Hindutva extremists and even the leaders of the country evokes no punishment. Like the threat issued last week by the ruling BJP party leader to kill 200,000 Muslims. The head of Genocide Watch has also warned that a genocide against the 200 million Muslims in India is possible. Mr. President, Pakistan's call for cognizance of the situation in occupied Jammu and Kashmir and within India deserves the special attention of the Special Advisor on the responsibility to protect. We look forward to working with her to advance the objectives of international humanitarian law and the provisions of the 2005 outcome document. I thank you, Mr. President.